All right, we are recording. Let's get started with Paris. I think you and I were discussing a product owner for DevStats yesterday. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what we need done?
Yeah, I mean, we really need a product owner for DevStats. I think most folks on this call are familiar. If not, if this is your first time with us, devstats.kate.io. It's a dashboard system that we're utilizing to get pretty much any and all metrics out of both Kubernetes and the rest of its repos. We've been doing DevStats pull-ups every other week for 15 minutes on Fridays to just go through what it is, but I think that's still not necessarily hitting the mark for what we need. So I think we just need somebody official, quote official, that can help lead this as a product owner. And hold on one second, I'm looking at chat. Okay, cool, thanks. And from a product owner perspective, we really mean actually going to these SIGs, asking them for use cases, and then reverse engineering dev stats. I mean, right now we've got this pile of data, and we don't even necessarily know if that's, the data that we even need. So it's just pretty much reverse engineering this and coming up with the vital stats for the health and velocity of the project. Also coming up with benchmarks, coming up with possible SLAs, SLOs. Garrett and I talked about that a little bit briefly, but just to recap this, we're thinking, just from a very high level SLOs, like how much do we grow in unique contributors? Very high level, something that we can, like I said, go back and benchmark.
Are people familiar, first of all, with the term SLO? Do you want to just clarify what that is real quick?
It's just like a service level, like objective or something that's not customer related, just something that we're saying to folks that we want to accomplish. So, we want to see an increase in the number of unique contributors, for instance. It's like by how much. Again, all of that stuff is TBA at the moment. So we really need to talk to people like SIG Architecture and other SIGs to get their kind of buy-in and weigh in on this. So we really need someone, I think, to kind of just take this by its horns and make a project out of it. This could definitely be something for a first-time contributor, maybe somebody that's not new to open source though, but maybe first-time contributor to Kubernetes, somebody that likes data analysis. So if anybody knows of anyone, please send them our way as well. Garrett, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so like SLOs, I just want to say they're metrics for ourselves. They're our purview or our charter for Contrib. Paris and I are actually working on defining it, but at a high level, we are trying to maintain the project's health and velocity and making sure that contributors have a positive experience. So DevStats is a way to kind of give us feedback into that. And what the stats are strongly affects our sense of how well the project is doing. So this product owner role is very important. And it's an opportunity to think critically about what it means for Kubernetes to be healthy, growing, for its velocity to be improving, for its stability to be maintained. So there's a lot of opportunity to have a pretty big impact here.
Well, George, you have a question?
Yeah, but for some stats, let's say mean time between a response to a pull request, those are considered user-facing, right? Or is that also an SLO? Like we'd have our own internal stats that we would care about, right? But then like the one that I guess would make us really look bad to the public, would those be a separate thing, or is it all SLOs?
Well, they make us look bad because we're not holding ourselves up to reasonable standards. Like they're bad for us too. It's not that they're just something we don't want a journalist to see. We don't want this stat to show something like that.
Right. I was just wondering, like, is there a different set of things, or are they all just called SLO? I'm just trying to understand the terminology.
I mean, that's up for discussion. I mean, literally all of this is up. Yep, literally all of this is up for discussion as to like what each dashboard means and why we care about it. And if we don't care about it, then filing an issue to get that dashboard removed. Because, like I said, this is a public-facing thing now, and the public is very much aware of it. So we just need to get on top of it as well.
And we already have some kind of informal SLOs within the project, right? For any of you that are contributing to the community repo, or I don't know if it's on in the main repo as well, but there's that Feishta bot, the Eric's bot that like pings you all the time, like, hey, no one's touched this issue within 90 days, we're going to close it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of an example of an SLO. We have an expectation that your issue is going to make some progress in 30 days, or after 90 days, we're going to close it.
Mm-hmm.
And the bot is just a way of enforcing that. So that's an example of an SLO.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sadev, I think you're next up with a labels discussion.
Yep. Do you want me to go ahead and brief everyone, Garrett, or you want?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. Yep. Well, guys, so there's a link in the agenda. If you follow that link, if you want me to share, I can, or if you just follow the link, I will just brief about the work Garrett and myself we did a few weeks back. We also had Eric for a review on that. Is everyone on the link, by the way? Just making sure. I have the doc open. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Yeah. All right, so basically we tried to identify different reasons to close an issue, and this work is, it's basically targeting towards the issue triage ongoing work. So as you can see, we have identified a few different reasons, right? Why the issue is gonna close. The first one is pretty obvious. It's fixed and it's closed. We already have a label for that, right? And then the next one is inactive issues. This was a part of the original proposal. The email I sent a few months back, I think November last year, very initial email, that if the issues are inactive for a longer time, we should have a label to close automatically. And luckily we have the first bot, right? So it's closing issues, as Garrett says, 90 days. So we don't need label there. The third one is support questions, and there is also a label out there, kind support. Though we noticed that there are issues, I don't see it's properly used, but I think that will be a separate discussions. But we have a label for any support questions as well. We are usually we have so many of those issues out there with the questions. The next two, duplicate issue, we don't have a label right now. So we really don't have a way to identify how many duplicates we are hitting. This is again, a part of the DevStat discussion I had some time back with Lucas, and we have labels. Then they can, he can do a really good job there, right, displaying stats. So duplicate, I think so far we agreed that we need a label there. The second one is issues that cannot be reproduced. Either they're already fixed or there's a lack of information. So to cover that, we agreed that we need a label there. Garrett did a really good job with the color coding here. So two identifies cases for the label. And then, I'm not going through the whole doc right now, but even with a little inconsistency between what we have in triage guidelines and that 90 days or 60 days closing by the bot. So something that's also mentioned here. But as you can see, there are a few different requested labels here. You can go over it. I would like and request everyone to take a look after the meeting. Provide your feedback in this doc, and there is some motivations behind this work. So the whole point of this discussion is, like I said, we already reviewed the work. Garrett, myself, Eric has lots of feedback there. So if everyone can take a look, provide their feedbacks, I guess the next step will be to take it to the broader community, right, Garrett, on the Kubernetes dev list, and having a broader opinion if anyone has any objections on adding at least those couple, 3 different labels we identified.
So I have a technical comment. I was just thinking about this a little bit more the last couple of days. I like the idea of having the labels for the increased granularity in dev stats of understanding where our issues are coming from and why we're closing issues. But I don't think we need new bot commands. I think we could add an argument to the close command because all of these new labels, we want to close the issue as well, right? We rarely want to apply this label or we never want to apply this label without closing the issue, right?
Yep.
So I think we could add an argument to the close command that allows people to provide a rationale for closing.
Yep, and that's again, as we put in the doc, right? We have under the requested new labels, we have a close/duplicate, right? So
yep,
that
I'm just talking about the actual mechanism for applying the label. I think we could do it by modifying the close command.
Oh, the command itself. Okay.
So 1 command instead of 2.
Yeah, I just like fewer commands, and then we could basically just propose these new labels and changes to dev stats and changes to the close command. I think those are the 3 things that are going to happen. We want 4 new labels added. We want to add or modify an existing dashboard on dev stats that lets us see why why issues are being closed, and we want to modify the close command. Does that sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. The one thing that I would suggest is we've had issues with adding labels before and them not being clear, especially in non-core repos. I'm thinking Helm. We should probably actively solicit feedback on this from like Helm and say like, hey, does this make sense to you as well?
Awesome. Sadev, can you do that? In addition to sending it out to the dev mailing list, can you reach out to Helm in particular and see if this is something that they have any ideas on or thoughts on?
Absolutely. Now, again, I think right now, like you said, Helm in particular, and Chris, that's what you're suggesting. I know we had some discussion in the community meeting some time back about consistency across all the repos. And we had sort of, on and off feedback, right? I think Aaron proposed a few things. But right now, let's just keep it to the Kubernetes and Helm, not some of the repos like Minikube or what else, right? Just let's not worry about that, right?
Right now, our mechanisms for creating labels across multiple repos currently sync it to every repo in the org.
That's not.
So I'm just thinking from a technical implementation perspective.
Christoph, we haven't done that. Even though it can do that, it is an option to select a subset of repos with that tool. And if you look at the Helm repo right now, not all the labels are there.
Okay.
So we should get feedback on ones that like people want across all the repos, but I think by default we're not putting labels everywhere yet.
Okay. And I have one more bit for Zadev.
Yep.
If we make it part of the close command, that will encourage it to also put the action on the close, right? Like I don't want to be able to label something closed duplicate without it actually getting into the bot queue to be closed. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. So let me try to understand myself. When we say modify the close command, and again, we're not talking about the label that itself, but the way. So basically, we are talking that if we introduce a new label called close duplicate, right? It will basically invoke the close label in the background, right? But it will provide the label close duplicate. Is that what you mean initially, Kat, with modifying the close command?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Also,
So,
I think I just made a misstatement. I just looked at the Helm repo, and it looks like all the labels are being synced. It's now paginated, so they don't all show up on one page, but they are all there. So yes, we do need to think about the impact on the broader org structure and where we'd like these labels to be.
Okay. Yep.
Now the labels are there. That doesn't mean the Helm people don't have to use them if they don't want to, right? It's more of a clutter question for them, probably.
Right, exactly. We don't want to add clutter to 80 repos if they're not going to be helpful.
Right.
Yep. So okay, perfect. Yeah.
So next steps are to take this to devs to Kubernetes dev and a few select repos.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Sounds great. George, just to make sure, your comment, that's basically to modify the close as well, right? As part of
Yeah,
did
like
you
we don't.
edit something more?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, if we put it as part of the close command, it'll train people to use it that way, as opposed to, oh, I think this should be closed, setting the label, and then 3 months later, nothing. Like, will the bot check if it has the label, even if you don't tell it /close? I'm just wondering if we're going to accidentally create a bunch of issues that say I should be closed, but don't actually get closed.
Mm.
So I don't know. I guess check on that.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to just add it to as part of the close command, that's the workflow, that you can't, there is no other command to set those labels other than the close command.
Right.
Or having direct write access to the repo, but we're looking to move away from that anyways.
I think, yeah, that's, well, I guess we are on same page then now.
Yeah, to answer Morgan's question, he goes, how many people can add labels manually and do that? I meant with the /label command, not the GitHub clicky, right?
The /label command, I think everyone in the org can do that.
Right.
But with the exception of the approve command and a few others.
Right. Because if I see a label that says close, and I'm like, oh, do I tag this label and something comes by and closes it? Like, I don't know. It's just confusing to me.
The label plugin only matches certain patterns like SIG and kind and that kind of stuff. So if we created a new like top level like close /duplicate, then it wouldn't match that regex, so it wouldn't be that command wouldn't be able to add it.
Good to know.
Okay.
George and Jose from Intel, something about the bare metal developer kit. Do you want to provide some background?
I'm gonna introduce you all real quick, and then Jose will introduce himself. But just to kind of train you all up, Chris Short did a blog post on check out my new Kubernetes, learn how to Kubernetes and a bunch of Raspberry Pis. And I was like, oh, I was gonna do that, great. And then I looked at the cost and I was like, that's Intel NUC money right there. And I have one of those. So I was talking, Tim and I have been meeting for the past, 2-3 weeks with crazy ideas about wouldn't it be neat if you had an Intel NUC and it just like came set up out of the box and you could type kubadmin init. And then you just had like a little developer NUC that you can give your developers something cheap enough an engineering manager can like expense, buy it at the Kubernetes store or whatever, and they get started, while the rest of their organization figures out how they're going to do Kubernetes and, getting cloud accounts and all that kind of stuff. So it ends up that Jose here, him and I go way back, and he's working at Intel, and they're looking at throwing more engineers at Kubernetes. So we got our heads together, and then, I don't know, Jose, you want to introduce yourself here?
Yeah, hey, thanks, George.
Yeah.
George and I know each other back from, I guess, the Puppet community in 2008 or something like that. So as I was getting ramped, I just took a role at Intel to sort of be the program manager for our Kubernetes upstream efforts. So you'll probably see me around, hopefully, a little bit more as things get started. So we've got right now a team of about 16 people resourced on Kubernetes. So we'll be hopefully adding a lot more to the conversation here in the next year. So yeah, I ran into George sort of on this mailing list, and we just got to talking, about what little projects can we get started. Obviously looking for some quick wins, sort of getting into a new role. And so this seems like an easy thing for us to do. We could take a NUC and re-image it with one of our SI partners and then sell it out to the community as sort of a developer kit. And so I think generally what we were looking at from discussion today is, one, is this interesting to the team? Do you think this would be useful for other teams? Two, if it is, who's interested in helping kind of define the scope and what we actually end up working on? I think George and I are going to go off and maybe make like a product requirements document, and then I can give that to our planners internally their heads are really focused on like how many units is this going to move, and so we just need to make a compelling argument for why this would ship at some level of volume that would be interesting to an SI partner, and we should be able to get a SKU or get a product line from one of the SIs that'll fit our need. And so yeah, we just kind of been brainstorming, and I think we just wanted to open it up for discussion. So that's my intro and summary of I think what the topic was.
Yeah. So if you've seen blog posts from people putting together like their little getting started with Kubernetes home lab things and everything, please send them my way. And I've also pinged Jess Frizzell, who's really into Nux, and the person who did the blog post I'm sure you've seen with different Nux with My Little Pony Kubernetes nodes on them. I think y'all have seen that one. So I'm reaching out to people who are kind of doing this kind of thing and see if we can't provide them something, a cool developer experience that they can just start using right away. So,
yeah, I got to ask a really dumb question because that's what I do. What the heck is a NUC? And what does it stand for and how is it spelled?
I just Googled that too. Thanks, Jason.
Next unit of compute. So it's NUC, all capital. And it's just a small, it's like a tiny small power processor on, it's sort of like a Raspberry Pi except for x86. So you've got a bunch of ports on the back, and you could use it as like a gaming rig if you really wanted to soup it up and put a graphics card in it, or you could just use it as a desktop computer, or I think in this case, if you wanted to start developing on bare metal, you could turn it on. It's like $200-300. And you could start developing on an x86 processor. The thought, as to why this would be a useful product kind of going forward is right now this is all geared at the home and sort of maker market at Intel. And if we can sort of show them that there's interest in the data center, maybe we can get a lower bin data center processor included into a small form factor. And if we can do that, if we can figure out how to deal with the power consumption and stuff like that, we can, maybe talk to them about unlocking some of the features that are that are normally binned down for a low-end processor, so that people could develop with, sort of the high-end data center processors in a home lab or, at a startup or something like that, and then have it, run performant applications in the data center. So that's sort of like the longer-term thought. But right now, it's just like, can we get people developing on x86?
Quick question for you, and I would love to have you hit me on Slack privately, JD Mars. Can you tell me about the OS and all that? Because I have an idea, and this actually ties into your thing. So
I'm Intel. I sell metal, so we can put any OS you want on it.
Okay.
So it's similar to this form factor. This is a Chrome box, but it's basically the same thing. It's like you can stack 3 or 4 of them on your desk, and they make cool little like developer kits. And
okay, please send me a private message and make contact because I definitely have questions.
Yes.
Jace, yeah, cool. I think we'll do this as a public project, so we'll loop in. Sorry.
I was going to say, Jace, make sure you loop in Jess because I think she told me they were working on something like this. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
George and Jose, have you guys talked to Lucas Kaldstrom from Cluster Lifecycle? Do you know who he is?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I have not yet, but what I've been doing so far is kind of taking quick notes on things that we need to sort out in kubeadmin to make the experience better. But I know him very well. I can approach him about this. Okay, so he does a lot of work on integrating Kubernetes with the Raspberry Pi. He's the lead for Cluster Lifecycle. Mm-hmm. And I think he got his background with Kubernetes as a student, so wants to make Kubernetes accessible to students as well. His homepage has like a cluster of Raspberry Pis on it, and instructions for getting up and running with like the maker type kit and getting people developing on Kubernetes without a lot of cost. Right. So he might be a good person to get feedback on what things would be, what things could help drive this forward. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I figured it'd be a fun little thing. If any of you have these little Nux, they're like awesome. You just buy one for less than $500 and do stuff.
I will say, after building a 6-node Raspberry Pi cluster, that was a huge mistake because now I have to do all this stuff to accommodate the ARM CPUs versus x86. I could just start working with it out of the box. Yeah, and the Nux are powerful enough that if you put stuff in kata containers, it will replicate having separate nodes despite it being one box, which I think is key versus just telling people to use Minikube. Like they get a real, like each pod on each node will get a real IP address, just like on real bare metal.
So like part of it is like not just give people a nice developer experience, but something that when they do get to their real cluster, right, they won't, they shouldn't feel as much friction. So.
Yeah, $300 a pop, I would have easily bought 2 of these things as opposed to spending the $450, $500 on 6 Raspberry Pis and a case and the power and everything.
And a switch, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. So anyway, I thought that was really fun, and I'm really glad Jose's here. So I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. We'll get a proposal pulled together and maybe come back in a couple of weeks and see where we land. So we got the names from so Lucas, it sounds like, and then one other person that was in the chat, Maren, and we'll follow up.
Yeah, and Jace, do you have Jace? I'll get you Jace's contact information after.
Awesome. Paris, you added a Meet Our Contributors section?
Yes. We had our first live streamed event this morning. I thought it was fun. George was on the call. He was on our 1s and 2s, aka YouTube. We had, I think it was 20 viewers on live at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. So not bad. We filled almost an hour with questions from Slack and from Twitter about mostly new contributions. It was really awesome. I think we could definitely take off with this approach to mentoring of kind of like mentors on demand. I'd love to host this on a more regular basis and also even do multiple events in the same day to cover other time zones, but we need more volunteers. We have a good base right now of people, but they will obviously burn out eventually if we keep them on. So definitely welcoming new volunteers for that. I put the issue for volunteers with the sign up sheet, very similar to George's user office hours where folks just sign up. I'm also going to be going to KDev and asking there as well. Please get the word out about this. It's like I said, it's something that's a creative way of scaling mentorship. I don't know if anybody was on the call. Was anybody else here on the call, or did anybody view it? No.
We have 55 views so far, so
yeah,
that's at least as good as a community meeting, considering it's only gone live in the past.
Yeah, we did get some good traction on Twitter, so I think we'll continue with that. We might even want to pop it on Reddit, and keep going with advertising cycles. But here's to that. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments about that? Cool. Yeah, it was super fun. I'm actually going to skip the goals and end that last. And that's Garrett and I can get into the goals. But the next thing I actually want to propose is another mentoring strategy. So that will round out, I think we're at 5 at this point. But the mentoring idea that I want to propose is what I'm dubbing as kind of the buddy program. It's very similar to what I was talking about in the Contributor X Slack the other day. If you weren't there, it's pretty much taking a program that the Go community has adopted for events. So it's very similar, like with George and other people have been talking about it, maybe like, hey, why don't we have a booth at KubeCon for like new folks to like come over and say, hey, what's up? Kind of like a connection point so that it's not so overwhelming for people. So I'm thinking about taking that idea and essentially scaling it one up to long term. So it's very similar to kind of one-on-one mentoring, but without the strings attached. So we would have a list of mentors who would be free, not necessarily free, we don't know their availability, but free as in they would be open to speaking to someone that they don't know for about 1 hour, and they would ultimately give them a tour of Kubernetes. So like asking them, what their goals are, asking them about their interests, saying, hey, okay, maybe SIG networking is a place for you. This is the approach that I would take to get in there. These are the issues that I might want to start with. So I'm going to propose that in an issue today. So it's more similar to one-on-one where people will get more automatic gratification. Like group mentoring right now is very long-term, and you have to be go into a cohort. It's sort of like an application process. It's more structured. So this would be a little bit more whimsical. And I think that might handle, because right now I'm just getting pounded with people like, hey, I need a mentor. Hey, I need a mentor right now. And then of course mentors are saying, I don't have time. But I think if we took the reoccurring time commitment out and say, oh, well, we only need you for 1 hour, every other month. I think that could alleviate that kind of like a time commitment, if you will. So anybody have any thoughts or concerns about that? Chris, I know you were ready to volunteer yourself. Interested?
I mean, yeah, I can help out with this, sure. I don't know if I'm the best person to like talk specifically to Kubernetes repo type things.
Yeah.
Maybe there'd be like a train the trainer session somebody would have to go through.
Yep. And I'm down with that too. I mean, this is just beginning phases that I'm thinking. So all of that is up for discussion. So if you want, we can start a little tiger team and think about how we're going to tackle that issue. And I think George might want to help too. I don't know if I'm signing him up for that, if he wants to do it. He's like, whatever. Plus one. I don't know, Tim, what do you think about this? Thumbs up?
I'd like to, yeah, and I see Gwen also thumbs upping.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, like I said, I think this might alleviate quicker pain points. It might not necessarily scale large, but at the same time, like I said, I think addressing some of the needs that we have is definitely a priority. And I think some of the immediate needs of folks are taking precedence. So that's it for mentoring. I'll put the mentoring umbrella issue in the chat and on the agenda as well. This is where I'm keeping all of our opportunities for mentorship. And next week's meeting, we'll talk about that in much more detail, but I will spare this crew. So I guess our next issue that we need to discuss is goals, specifically for the next release, end of March. I have we have our goals link in there. You'll see that we've started to really finesse these out much more. I'm actually not calling them OKRs anymore, just so that folks can jump into them and understand them a little bit better. I actually put our motto at the top. I don't think Garrett has seen this doc yet, but Garrett said something to me yesterday that I swear I think we should live by in this group. And
that is so awesome.
Automated, it better be documented. That is our motto for the year, y'all. I think if it can't be automated, we're documenting it, period. And especially like we have like found folks like Gwen and others who come along and say, hey, this stinks. Let's document it, like why it stinks and how it can get better. This is how I think we can really rein in new contributors as well, especially from the Meet Our Contributors call earlier. The more newcomers come to us and say, hey, this stinks, like let's figure out why it stinks. Let's figure out what holes we can fill. And I think this is like our best way to do it. So I did put in some priority numbers in there, and I think this is what I'd like to discuss with the team. And there are holes as well in the owner section. So I'd love to get some more volunteers for the holes. If we can't find volunteers for those holes, then we'll just go to our nice to have section and kind of tick them all off as we go throughout the year. Garrett, did you have anything to add about that or any help?
Oh, that's great. I think we should just go through them.
Okay.
Thanks, Barry.
Right. So objective number 1, create programs that encourage the growth of all contributor ladder levels. And all of this is like I said before, creating from scratch. So I think a lot of our key results really just have to do with launching them and getting them up and running, and then going along with our motto of if it can't be automated, it better be documented. Then I think our key takeaway for all of these programs that we all have documentation. For instance, Outreachy is ending at the end of March. I better have that documented. GSOC is spinning up. Nikita's getting that documented. I think that's a key part of our success, is making sure that all of these programs are about to get documented so that we can scale them eventually. And the next objective is the Kubernetes contributor experience is well documented and continuously improving. George, you promised a consolidated, comprehensive, and succinct contributor guide. It's published by the end of February. I wanted to see what you thought about maybe taking some of those words out and putting MVP or something, because
I've got 21 days.
We're about to deliver the final product with those words.
Yeah. Just say decent contributor guide. I've got 21 days. A lot can happen.
Mediocre.
Yeah.
That's the M in MVP, right?
I guess what we should do too is, I guess we should solicit like a survey or some kind of, we take like, if you're saying that we're publishing this by the end of February and the release is end of March, maybe during the month of March, you could solicit people to get feedback on it. And,
or I like to say maybe skeleton complete, basically, like feature complete.
I've actually gotten some feedback from people on what's there already, especially from the team at Amazon, because they're just all starting to like ramp up on all of this. And so I can actually ask specifically for even more feedback from them, because I think they're exactly our target group.
Can you just start filing them as issues? Because I've asked Jose's folks to also go through them. I figure every time you find out someone's going new.
Yeah, I mean, the last one I just like put in a code change. So I mean.
Oh, okay. If you're just
so the last one I just fixed.
Yes.
But yeah, I will definitely solicit more opinions, and I will also ask them to file the issue, because I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I don't have to, right? That kind of gets them into the mode of contributing, which is the whole point. So super meta now. All right, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
One of the areas I think that stands out still is in need of scrubbing is the code review area, but Paris, after next week's talk with Tim Hawken, so I'm going to try and capture as much as I can out of that and then spend some time scrubbing all of those docs, and I think that'll round out one of the major sections there.
Yeah, for sure. Plus
I was actually maybe going to get started on that this week, so maybe we can coordinate, Tim.
Yeah.
So, because I saw George's call for help this morning, and I was like,
Yeah, sorry. I was sick out yesterday too. I was hoping to finish scrubbing the files like in a week, and that didn't happen. So.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah,
I've got 21 days, Paris. 21 days.
The code review, for the folks that are new on the call, we are taking another angle to contributor docs and also adding relevant information for people along the contributor ladder who aren't necessarily new, things that is going to help them advance their contribution careers, if you will, within Kubernetes. And one of those that we deem is critical is how to contribute code reviews to Kubernetes, or code reviewing the Kubernetes way. And we are currently doing a group mentoring test cohort. One of their workshops is actually going to be a Tim Hawken live code review, where he goes through some PRs that I think he might anonymize. I'm not too sure yet, but just pretty much like a checklist of things. That's one of the things that we hear a lot from Approvers Plus, is that the code reviews are lacking or missing certain key elements, or things like that. So just trying to get folks up to speed who were already on the call. But all right, so all other things in this objective that we had, George and myself, and I know other people are working to, Tim included, working to smooth out the community meeting now that we're so large. We're just trying to make this experience as professional as possible. for people who are joining. And I think, we're making steady improvements there. George is doing KubeCon content for contributors with help from a lot of other folks. It looks like Aaron signed himself up for ensuring GitHub labels are well documented. So it looks like Aaron's going to lead that. And then also we've got the Sadev's and Garrett's activity with the labeling that we just heard. And then a new community website. George, did you want to update folks with that info that you've heard, or is it just?
Yeah, real quick. I was syncing with the CNCF folks, and they mentioned that they're planning on revamping the entire Kubernetes IO website. And they're like, oh, we could put this in the community section. And I was like, what community section? So I've inserted myself and Paris into their processes so we can find out what's going on. I haven't met with them officially yet, but as soon as I find out how the website is going to be put together, they're thinking a lot more user-facing stuff can go out of the community repo and into like the website section. So as soon as I have more information, I'll let you know.
Dare we ask for a cat?
I'm muting myself now.
I know.
George, this is Matt. I'm here now.
Yeah.
And, so when you figure that off, can you tie off with Joe Beta? Because he was talking about turning the community repo into a site for people to navigate that. Mm-hmm. And so if the community is going to be a section on the main site, there's overlap and stuff. And so just to tie off the communication.
Yep, I'm well aware of Joe's. In fact, he's in the OKR there. There's a 3 Venn group diagram we're trying to put.
All right, so before we move on to the next objective, did everybody look at the priority numbers, with 0 being like we absolutely have to do that now? I did zero out the Slack admin guidelines and moderation just because we're done and we're ready to release that. So if you have any comments or questions about the prioritization, please either speak now or insert a comment on the doc. So the next one is the objectives, makes DevStats work for us and come up with metrics that measure health and velocity. That's what we talked about earlier, especially meeting with a product owner. The next objective, provide sufficient automation that direct write access to repos is no longer required. G-Rod and Aaron and and steering committee are working on some of those items. Prioritization is actually off. I'm waiting on Aaron on that one. And then the other objective that we have is growth and promotion of the contributor experience, SIG. So like our face-to-face meetings, define scope by the way of a formal charter. Garrett and I are super close to being done the first draft. We were almost done today before the call, but we just want to tie up some loose ends, and then we'll send out the first draft to folks to look at. We did sign up for a intro and deep dive session at KubeCon Copenhagen, so we could definitely use some help with organization there. And then defining community management as a sub-project of the SIG and other different levels of sub-projects of the SIG. So questions, concerns, comments about that? Sorry, I wasn't looking at your faces. I was reading off of the sheet. George.
Sorry, mute button. Have you done the draft of the SIG charter and all that stuff yet, or started?
It's almost done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll be done by next week.
Oh, can we check it out, or is it like open for comment, or is it just like?
We'll send it out today. Admittedly, Paris did some work yesterday evening, and I was going to take a look at it before sending it out, but we can send it out probably today if you want.
Yeah, it's just raw. That's why I just wanted to make sure that it doesn't look like spaghetti. I don't want to embarrass myself.
Well, in that case, take a day or so.
Yeah.
And we're trying, by the way, to follow the template. Phil Whitrock from, I guess, in the steering committee are proposing a SIG governance template. I think it's been sent out to Contribex, so I just added the link to the chat if you want to take a look at that. We're trying to write our charter in accordance with the with that template.
Exactly. So we're just trying to get ahead of the game too. It has not been fully approved by the steering committee. I don't think. It sounds like it's about to. but just so that we're ahead of things, there's a TLDR version and then there's a long version. Of course, Garrett and I started with the TLD version, TLDR. And then Matt, I know you had your hand up.
No, actually, my question was answered now that I got the template. SIG Apps was going to jump in and start doing this come early March is when people will be around to do this.
Yep.
And so the template solves our problem. We're looking for that. I did have a question about another one.
Sure, shoot.
When it comes to promotion of the Contrib SIG, has anybody thought about doing a roadshow to the other SIGs to go into each one and to talk about Contrib? I know a lot of folks don't think about it, and they don't think much about the experience of the contributors. In fact, a lot of times when they think of the contributors, they think of themselves, and they're the most active people in the project, so they don't relate to what a lot of the contributors are like, because they know things that aren't even documented anywhere. And just awareness might be an idea to roadshow it at all the SIGs.
I'm down. I mean, maybe we could even, George said, let's do this in big
Yeah, let's split them up.
Yeah, let's split them up. I mean, there's 35 plus SIGs and working groups at this point. I think if we all split them up, then it's something that we can achieve. And maybe we'll have just like a script. I mean, we don't necessarily have to follow the script, but some kind of talking points list of, hey, these things. I mean, we could probably even like slam in a label conversation, slam in a LGMT. This is what LGMT means. We could probably think about quite a few things to put on our talking list. So I'm down. Let's do it.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea, dude.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Any questions, concerns, comments about anything that we've talked about today or goal-wise or anything? We're making progress. Thanks to everybody for all of your help. I know the contributor guide has been such a I can't even say that actually we're recording. It's been such an awesome experience for you all, and your hard work does not go unnoticed. Same with Sadev with issue triage, and Chris is about to take the buddy program here. Everybody on this call, contributors are thanking us. So cheers. Gwen, you have one more thing.
Yeah, I was a little confused. Oh no, that was just applause. Sorry. No, are we having meet the contributors this afternoon as well?
No, we are not. I went ahead and canceled it. We don't have any volunteers.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see it in time.
No, that's fine, and that's fine.
It would be nice for me to see what new contributors are worried about, because that is good feedback for the guide as well.
Yeah,
anyway.
I think the TLDR from today, the biggest trends and questions were, what SIG do I join? And I'm overwhelmed with SIGs. So yeah, go in exactly.
Yeah, the backlog's in the Slack channel if you want to.
Yep, and the backlog is in the Slack channel too. We tried to keep it that way anyway.
I see. That's the Meet the Contributor Slack channel?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
All right. Last call. Questions, concerns, comments for the group. Garrett, do you have anything?
Nope, that's it.
+1 from George.